Faraka Express at 10:55 a.m. based on secret information they received on the 24th of February 2015. High quality fake Indian currency notes of face value rupees 10 lakhs were found with the accused 1 and 2, namely Sameer and Monu. Both of the accused were arrested on the same day at 11:55 p.m. On 16th April, after preliminary investigation and the preliminary report by the Central Forensic Science Laboratory, a case under Section 16 of the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act was registered. On 30th April, the Ministry of Home Affairs directed the National Investigation Agency to take over the case from the Delhi Police by Order Number 26 of 2015. On 27th May, based on the information provided by accused 1 and 2 in custody, the house of accused number 4, Peter, was searched. However, he was found to be absconding. On 19th June, the NIA received information about Peter's hospitalization in Rajasthan, and immediately they dispatched a team that went to Rajasthan. However, Peter unfortunately passed away on the 22nd of June. The NIA managed to establish Kalu alias Mama, that is accused number 3's real identity, and he was arrested on 23rd June 2015. After the completion of investigation, the charge sheet was dispatched by the National Investigation Agency on 24th August 2015. If your honors are well versed with the facts of the case, the counsel seeks permission to notify the court about the division of issues.
Yes, please.
Much obliged, Your Honor. Uh, there are four main issues in this particular case. Counsel number 1 will be addressing issue number 1 and 3, namely whether the accused are liable under sections 120B, 121, and 123 of the Indian Penal Code, and whether the accused are liable under sections 489B and 489C of the Indian Penal Code. Whereas my co-counsel will be addressing issues number 2 and 4 of the case. The counsel seeks permission to proceed with the argument.
Please.
Much obliged, Your Honor. The counsel will be addressing issue number 3 first, and then we'll proceed to issue number 1. Issue number 3 deals with whether the accused are liable under sections 489B and 489C of the Indian Penal Code. The first sub-issue being whether the accused are liable for using and trafficking counterfeit currency notes as genuine under section 489B of the Indian Penal Code. It is humbly submitted before this honorable court that the accused are liable for using and trafficking counterfeit currency notes as genuine under section 489B of the Indian Penal Code, as held by the Honorable Supreme Court in K. Hashim versus the State of Tamil Nadu. The primary object of Section 489B of the IPC is to stop the circulation of forged notes by punishing all persons who, knowing or having reason to believe the same to be forged, do any act which could lead to the circulation, as established by the Honorable Calcutta High Court in Bharat Keshri versus the State of West Bengal. The three essential ingredients for convicting a person under Section 489B are: first, that the currency was counterfeit; second, that the accused trafficked the counterfeit currency; and third, that they had the knowledge of the currency being counterfeit. In the present case, accused 1 and 2, namely Sameer and Monu respectively, were apprehended at the Old Delhi metro station with high quality fake Indian currency notes, FICN from here on, with a face value equivalent to rupees 5 lakh each in their bags that they carried on the Faraka Express from Malda town to New Delhi. The report submitted by the Central Forensic Science Laboratory (CBI) at New Delhi, confirming that the seized currency was high quality FICN, is sufficient to prove that the currency that the accused carried was counterfeit. Both the accused, namely Sameer and Monu, have claimed in their statements that they received the bags containing the high quality FICN from accused number 3, that is Kalu alias Mama. In their statements, both of them have also claimed that they were unaware that they were carrying fake currency notes in the bag. However, during their examination by the police and the NIA, both of them have confessed that they had carried FICNs to different locations previously on numerous occasions. And additionally, they also revealed the names of accused number 3, Kalu Elias Mama, accused number 4, Peter, and accused number 5 as co-conspirators in their plan to attack the Indian Army convoy at Pulwama on 15th August 2015. During his examination by the NIA, Kalu Elias Mama, that is accused 3, divulged the details of his meetings with Sohail and that those of Sohail's escape to Bangladesh, both of which events were confirmed by witnesses at the respective scenes. In the state of Maharashtra versus Ramu Gopinath Shinde, the Honorable Supreme Court has held that the basic idea embedded in Section 27 of the Evidence Act is the doctrine of confirmation by subsequent events. This doctrine is founded on the principle that if any fact is discovered in a search made on the strength of any information obtained from a prisoner, such a discovery is guaranteed that the information supplied by the prisoner is true. That information might be confessional or non-inclusive in nature. But if it results in the discovery of a fact, it becomes reliable information. In this case, the accused had also stated that the line "दुल्हन को सजाने का वक्त आ गया है" is a code for the bomb blast, and that accused number 5, Sohail, was the mastermind behind the plan. Taking note of the statements, the circumstantial evidence, and the recovery of the large amount of fake Indian currency notes, it would not be wrong to assume that the information supplied by the accused in custody is true and reliable. Thus, it can also be rightly inferred that the accused had knowledge of the currency being counterfeit. Uh, accused number 1 and 2 have stated that they received the bags of counterfeit currency notes from Kalu Elias Mama, that is accused 3. However, accused 3 has not mentioned the details of the events leading to which he came in possession of the counterfeit currency, as held by the Honorable Allahabad High Court in Ashfaq versus State of Uttar Pradesh. According to the provisions of Section 106 of the Evidence Act, the burden of proving that of explaining where he had received the counterfeit currency note was on accused number 3. A division bench of Gujarat High Court has also held that the possession of a large number of fake currency notes to be a case of active transportation of such notes. The large number of counterfeit currency being hidden in the secret cavities of the bags by accused 1, 2, and 3 indicates that the accused had knowledge that they were committing an offense and intended to transport the currency undetected by the law enforcement. Therefore, the council humbly submits that the accused are liable for the offence of trafficking and using counterfeit currency notes as genuine under Section 489B of the IPC. The second sub-issue is whether the accused are liable for possession of counterfeit currency under Section 489C of the IPC. It is humbly submitted before this honorable court that the accused are liable for possession of counterfeit Indian currency under the provisions of under Section 489C of the Indian Penal Code. Section 489C, as established by the Honorable Supreme Court in K. Hashim versus State of Tamil Nadu, deals with possession of forged counterfeit currency notes or banknotes, possession of counterfeit currency, and knowledge that the currency was counterfeited are necessary ingredients to constitute an offence under Section 489C of the IPC. In the present case, an eyewitness at the scene, Guddu Singh, testified to having received information about two individuals traveling to the Old Delhi railway station with counterfeit currency notes to carry out a criminal activity in the country. Guddu Singh is a pawn shop owner at the Old Delhi railway station and, in good faith, informed the special cell about the information he received from his classified source. There was no malice directing his actions while reporting it to the special cell. The council humbly submits that prosecution witness 1, Guddu's testimony, along with the Central Forensic Science Laboratory's report confirming the seized currency to be counterfeited, is sufficient to prove that the possession of currency possessed by the accused was counterfeited. Uh, if there are no preliminary questions, the council seeks permission to move forward with the submissions for issue number 1.
What is the link between the two accused you apprehended with this Kalu.
Your Honor, the two accused, first two accused, Samir and Monu, were friends before they met Kalu alias accused number three, and the two accused met the accused three through the organization which they were working in, which supposed allegedly helped the poor citizens of the country.
Miss Counsel,
Yes, Your Honor.
tell me one thing. The accused said at one stage, this is a piece of evidence, that's why they were traveling by an ordinary train so that they could not be detected. Is this factor has some bearing or effect on this case? You
Uh,
have not referred to this fact.
yes, Your Honor. This particular fact admitted by the accused is has been referred to in while proving the offence of under section 123 of the IPC.
Okay.
So, counsel seeks permission to move proceed with the submission.
Yes.
Yes.
Much obliged, Your Honors. Issue number one deals with whether the accused are liable under sections 120B, 121, and 123 of the Indian Penal Code. Um, the first sub issue deals with whether the accused are liable under section 120B of the Indian Penal Code. Section 120B describes the punishment for criminal conspiracy. In the present case, all the accused, namely Sameer, Monu, Kalu alias Mama, Peter, and Suhail, have been accused of criminal conspiracy on the basis of their statements, their actions, and the evidence gathered by the National Investigation Agency. The two essentials for conviction under section 120 BR that there should be an agreement between the parties for carrying out an unlawful or illegal act. Second, that the inference could be made to prove conspiracy, but the same should be backed by material evidence. In the present case, the call detailed records obtained by the Delhi Police Special Cell and the NIA indicate that accused 1, 2, 3, and 4 were in constant contact before the accused were apprehended in the present case. Additionally, accused number 3 was also in constant contact with accused number 5, Sohail. Individual witnesses have also informed the investigating officers that the accused 3 and accused 5 were seen together before the former was arrested in the present case. In their statements, all three, accused 1, 2, and 3, have stated that they were part of an institution, the nature of which was not disclosed by any of the accused in the matter. And from their statements, it can be rationally inferred that all of them had agreed to take part in the activities of the aforementioned institution, and they had every intention of supporting this dubious institution. As held by the Honorable Supreme Court in Yashpal Mittal versus the State of Punjab, it is not necessary that all the conspirators must know each and every detail of the conspiracy as long as they are co-conspirators in the main object of the conspiracy. In the present matter, the main object was the bomb blast at Pulwama on 15th August 2015. Kalu alias Mama has also explicitly admitted to knowing all the plans of the institution and has also been named that as the person who handed over the bags of the counterfeit cash to Sameer and Monu. Therefore, the council humbly submits the accused are liable for the punishment for criminal conspiracy as described under Section 120B of the Indian Penal Code. The second sub-issue in this deals with whether the accused are liable under Section 121 of the Indian Penal Code. Section 121 deals with the punishment for waging a war against the government of India. In Muhammad Ajmal Amir Kasab versus the state of Maharashtra, the Honorable Supreme Court has held that the government of India is only an executive limb of the state. However, this expression is not used in this narrow and restricted sense in Section 121. It is used to imply the Indian state, the juristic embodiment of the sovereignty of a country that derives its legitimacy from the collective will and consent of its people. Uh, as can be inferred from the aforementioned judgment, in the present matter, the planned attack on the Indian Army convoy can be considered an attempt to wage war against the government of India. The illustration given under section 121 describes the exact same situation as in the present matter. The accused were affiliated with a mysterious organization which allegedly guided poor citizens against the government's policy. None of the accused have disclosed the name of this organization or have given the names of other people associated with this organization except for the accused. The onus of proving the legitimacy of this organization is on the accused. Since the time is over, the council seeks permission for extension of time by 2 minutes.
Please continue.
Much obliged, Your Honors.
2 minutes.
So the council humbly submits that the accused are liable for attempting to wage war against the government of India under section 121 of the Indian Penal Code. The third sub-issue deals with whether the accused are liable under section 123 of the Indian Penal Code. Section 123 describes the punishment for concealing with intent to facilitate design to wage war against the government of India. In the present case, accused 1, 2, and 3 had hidden the fake Indian currency, high quality fake Indian currency notes in the secret cavity of their bags and admitted to using the Indian railways since it was comparatively safer for them to transport the FICNs through the railway route. Their action of hiding the FICNs, which are illegal, and using the railway route to transport them is clearly indicative of their intent to hide their plan of carrying out the bomb blast on the Indian Army convoy on 15th August 2015. The accused have also continuously concealed the name and nature of the organization which they have admitted to being associated with. Therefore, the council humbly submits that the accused are liable for concealing with intent to facilitate to wage war under section 123 of the Indian Penal Code. The council rests her arguments and requests her co-counsel to submit arguments for the remaining issues. It was an honor pleading before this court.
May it please the court, I am co-counsel for the prosecution. I will be addressing the following issues: whether the accused are liable under section 201 of the Indian Penal Code, and whether the accused are liable under section 16, 17, 18, and 20 of the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. With the permission of your honors, counsel would like to proceed to the submission.
Yes.
Much obliged, Your Honor. With respect to the first issue of whether the accused are liable under section 201 of the Indian Penal Code, it is humbly submitted that the accused are liable for causing the disappearance of evidence of offense and giving false information to screen the offender. Counsel would like to direct the attention of the court to page 21, paragraph 17.24 of the moot proposition. It says, Kalu alias Mama refused to give any detail about accused 5 Sohail's whereabouts to the NIA, evasive about Sohail's involvement and role in their. Furthermore, the call detail records show that accused 3, Kalu alias Mama, was in constant contact with accused 1, 2, 4, and 5. That is Samir, Monu, Peter, and Sohail respectively. And he was also seen with accused 5 Sohail on the morning of 20th June 2015, 3 days before he was arrested for his involvement in the present case, as confirmed by witnesses. It can thus be reasonably inferred that Kalu alias Mama intended to protect Sohail by refusing to disclose his whereabouts. In the Ram Saran Mato and another versus the state of Bihar, the Honorable Supreme Court had held that it is necessary to prove that the offense has been committed and that the accused had knowledge that the offense had been committed. In the present case, there is no doubt that accused 1, 2, and 3, that is Samir, Monu, and Kalu alias Mama, had knowledge of the fact that the offense had been committed. Hiding the FICNs in the secret cavity of their bags and the admission of their guilt during investigation are indicative of their knowledge. Furthermore, accused 3, Kalu alias Mama, is the only known associate of accused 5 Sohail in the country, and he was the only one with knowledge of his residence. However, when the investigative agency reached accused 5 Sohail's residence, they found that all the evidence had been destroyed. Furthermore, the accused in their statements have claimed to be part of an organization for which they collected funds, but have not given any details about the organization. It can be inferred that they are attempting to shield the organization that they belong to. It has been held by the Supreme Court in Kalavati versus the state of Himachal Pradesh that a case under section 201 of the IPC is not restricted to someone who screens the actual offender, but is also applicable to a person who is guilty of the main offense. In this case, the planning to execute the bomb blast on the Indian Army convoy on 15th August 2015. Therefore, it is humbly submitted that all the accused are liable under Section 201 of the IPC. If your honors do not have any questions, counsel would like to move on to the next issue.
Move on.
Much obliged, your honor. It is humbly submitted before this honorable court that the accused are liable under section 16, 17, 18, and 20 of the UAPA. The first sub issue being section 16. Section 16 of the UAPA talks about punishment for terrorist acts. The term terrorist act is defined in the previous under section 15 of UAPA, which reads as follows: whoever does any act with intent to threaten or likely to threaten the unity, integrity, security, or sovereignty of India, or with the intent to strike terror or likely to strike terror in the people or any section of the people in India or in any foreign country. Council humbly submits that an attack on an army convoy on Independence Day is a terrorist act because it is likely to strike fear in the hearts of citizens across the country. Furthermore, Section 15, Subclause 3A, talks about the damage to the monetary stability of India by way of production or smuggling or circulation of high-quality counterfeit Indian paper currency, coin, or of any other material. And the accused were found in possession of high-quality FICN note, which was to be sent to Pulwama. Council would like to move on to the next issue.
Okay, continue.
Much obliged, Your Honor. Section 17 of the UAPA talks about raising funds for a terrorist organization, knowing that such funds would be used for a terrorist act. So the essential features which should be present to prosecute a person under this act can be, under this section, my apologies, Your Honor, under this section can be: 1, fundraising should be done for a terrorist organization, and 2, the accused must have knowledge that the funds so raised will be used for a terrorist act. In the present case, all of the accused belong to an unnamed organization that had already been deemed to be an unlawful assembly by the government. And according to the charge sheet, as well as the testimony of the other accused, as well as the statements of the other accused, Sohail, that is accused 5, was in contact with the senior members of Lashkar-e-Taiba in Pakistan. Furthermore, the accused had the knowledge that the funds were to be used for an attack on the army convoy on 15th August. As per the disclosure of Kalu alias Mama, he collected FICN worth 10 lakh rupees from Sohail, that is accused 5, for sending it to Pulwama through Samir and Monu, accused 1 and 2 respectively, where it had to be collected by Peter, accused 4, to carry out the bomb blast on a convoy of Indian Army. The confession mentioned above of one of the accusers proves that the accused did have prior knowledge about the criminal activity they would initiate. Hence, the essentials of this section are satisfied. With the permission of your honors, I would like to...
As per the prosecution, accused number 4 is dead,
Yes, Your Honor.
and accused number 5 was never apprehended.
Yes, Your Honor.
So how do you link accused number 3 with 5 or 4 only on basis of phone records, I guess?
Your Honor, accused number 3 was in constant contact with all of the other accused. As well, he was also seen with accused 5 3 days before his arrest. As per witnesses, as proved by witnesses, he was seen 5 3 days before his arrest, Your Honor. And call details records show that he was in constant contact with all of the other 4 accused. May I proceed, Your Honor?
Mr. Gupta, if you have any question,
No, proceed. Let him proceed.
let him.
Much obliged, Your Honor. Section 18 of the UAPA talks about conspiring to commit a terrorist act or any act preparatory to the commission of a terrorist act. Accused 1 and 2 in the present case, Samir and Monu, did have the information about the presence of the counterfeit currency in their bags, and accused 3, that is Kalu alias Mama, was also aware of it. Furthermore, accused 1 and 2, Samir and Monu, had a blast code that had to be given to accused 4, Peter. The blast code was "Dulhan ko sajane ka waqt aa gaya hai." This shows that the accused had conspired to plan and execute such a terrorist act. Furthermore, the fact that they had hidden the FICNs inside their the hidden cabinet, the secret chamber of their bag, as well as using the railways to transport the currency, showed that they were doing their best to avoid detection by the investigative agencies. Council would like to move on to the last sub-issue.
Yes.
Yeah, my pleasure, Your Honor. Section 20 of the UAPA talks about punishment for being a member of a terrorist gang or organization. In the present case, as per Kalu alias Mama, in his defense statement, he said that Sohail kept me informed about the developments of the project. He told me that after the successful completion of the sensitization drive by us in Malda village, his team was declared to be an unlawful assembly and an FIR was lodged against them. They started receiving funds from across Pakistan and Bangladesh for their upliftment and sensitization programs. This points out that the organization of which all the accused were a part of had already been flagged by local police and was termed an unlawful assembly. Furthermore, Samir, in his confessional statement taken under Section 161 CRPC, told the police that Samir, that is accused 5, was in touch with Lashkar-e-Taiba's senior officials from Pakistan. Therefore, it is humbly submitted that all the accused are liable under Section 16, 17, 18, and 20 of the UAPA. With the permission of your court, with the permission of your honors, counsel would like to proceed to the prayer.
Yes, please.
Much obliged, Your Honors. Wherefore, in light of the issues raised, authorities cited, and arguments advanced, it is most humbly and respectfully prayed and implored before the Honorable Patiala House Court that it may be graciously pleased to 1. Convict the accused under sections 120B, 121, and 123 of the IPC. Convict the accused for causing disappearance of evidence and giving false information to screen the offender under section 201 of the IPC. Convict the accused for trafficking, possession, and intending to use counterfeit currency under section 489B and 489C of the IPC. 4. Convict the accused under section 16, 17, 18, and 20 of the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. The court may also be pleased to pass any other order which this honorable court may deem fit in the light of justice, equity, and good conscience, all of which is respectfully submitted on behalf of the state. It has been a pleasure pleading in front of this court. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Prosecution rests.
Yes, Your Honor, the prosecution, yes.
Defense comes.
If it please, your honorable bench, I am counsel number 1 representing the defense. If it please your honorable bench, may the counsel for the defense address the lordship as your lordship and the bench collectively as your lordship. Much obliged, your lordship. If it please your lordship, may the counsel move to the statement of facts.
That's already known. Proceed further.
Much obliged, your lordship. If it please your lordship, may the counsel start with issue number 1.
Yes.
Much obliged, your lordship. Council number 1 will be dealing with 3 issues, and the rest of the 2 issues will be dealt by council number 2. Council number 1 will be dealing with the first issue, that is section 16, whether the accused persons are guilty under section 16, 17, 18, and 20 of the UAPA. Second issue is whether they are guilty under section 489B and 489C of the Indian Penal Code. And the third issue will be whether they are guilty under section 121 and 123 of IPC. So starting with the first issue is whether the accused persons are guilty under section 16, 17, 18, and 20 of the UAPA. So the essential elements to constitute an offense under section 16 of UAPA is that the person must commit a terrorist act. And the essential element of section 17 is that the person must either raise or provide or collect fund, and this fund has to be used by a terrorist organization, and it must be used in order to commit a terrorist act, and the person must also have knowledge that the fund is to be used for a terrorist act. Now, the essential element of Section 18 is that the person must conspire, attempt, or advocate, abet, or advise for the commission of a terrorist act, and that thereby he must facilitate the commission of the act. And the essential ingredient of Section 20 of UAPA is that the person must be a member of a terrorist gang or organization. Now, Section 2K of the UAPA defines a terrorist act, and according to it, what is contained in Section 15 constitutes a terrorist act. Now, Section 15, Clause 13A, provides that causing any damage to the monetary stability of India by way of production of smuggling or circulation of high quality counterfeit currency note, and also under Clause 4 of Section 15, causing any damage or destruction to any property of the government of India, which is used for the purpose of defense, constitutes a terrorist act. In Rudul Hussain Khan versus State of Assam, the court has held that Article 21 guarantees a person life with dignity, and undoubtedly national security is of utmost importance. Thus, both national interest and individual dignities are the core values of the Constitution. But merely based on assumptions or presumptions, without sufficient material evidence to prove the charges, a person cannot be convicted under the sections provided in the UAPA. Here, accused 1 and 2, they were alleged to have the possession and use of counterfeit currency note, but the purpose for which this money is used is not established with valid evidence. Also, the notes whether the notes are of high quality FICN is also not established, because the CBI, the CFSL of the CBI has provided a report stating that these are high quality FICN, but no explanation is provided for the same. If your lordship is convinced, may the council move to issue number 2. Much obliged, your lordship. Issue number 2 is whether the person can be convicted under Section 489B and 489C of the IPC. Now, the essential ingredient of Section 489B is that the person must either sell, buy, or receive, or must traffic or use as genuine counterfeited currency note, and this must be done with the knowledge. Now, the essential ingredient of Section 489C is that the person must be in possession of high quality fake currency notes, and the person must have knowledge of that or have reason to believe the same was counterfeited currency note, and also the person must have the intention to use fake currency note as genuine. Now, according to Exhibit 7 provided in page number 53 and 54, the statements of defense witnesses 1 and 2, that is page number 53, last line is provided that both of them does not have the knowledge that they were carrying fake notes. Now, in a number of cases, listing a few of them, one is Gafur versus State of Kerala, another is Mammootty versus State of Karnataka, K. Hashim versus State of Tamil Nadu, Monday versus P. Vijaya, and Kuttan Nadar Wilson versus State. The court has held that knowledge is very essential element in order to convict a person under Section 489B and 489C of the Indian Penal Code. Now, in Uma Shankar versus State of Chhattisgarh, the court has held that sections 489A to 489E deals with economic offences with respect to counterfeited currency notes or bank notes. Now, the intention of the legislator by way of enacting this sections is to protect the economy of the country, and also the intention it has to be proved that necessary mens rea is accompanied with the use or possession of these counterfeited currency notes. Thus, it is well established that in order to convict a person under Section 489B or 489C, the person must have knowledge, and also the notes has to be counterfeited currency note. As stated earlier, the CFSL of CBI has provided 3 reports on based on the quality of the notes. First of all, they said that they are high quality notes. Secondly, they told that they are FICN, and thirdly, they have provided that they are high quality FICN. The same can be found in page number 25, 17.34. But they have not provided any kind of explanation on the basis of which they have come to the conclusion that these are high quality FICN. Thus, this report of the CFSL CBI cannot be relied upon. Now, another thing that the council would like to bring to the notice of your lordship is that both the accused persons were carrying notes having same serial number. The same can be found in Annexure G and Annexure I, that is page number 35 to 41. Annexure G is the notes carried by accused 1, namely Samir, and Annexure I is notes carried by accused number 2. both of them are carrying notes of same serial number. These accused 1, 2, and 3 are alleged to have committed a criminal conspiracy to conduct a bomb blast in the Indian Army convoy. Such a persons, would they make a grave mistake of printing notes with the same serial number and carrying them in the same train to the same destination? All this shows that these are there is some kind of discrepancies with regard to the notes. If your lordship is pleased, may the council move to the third issue.
From where you come to this conclusion that they are of the same number? It is not clear.
Annexure, your lordship, please refer to annexure G and annexure I. You can see that both the serial numbers
Lecture
are same.
E.
Annexure G.
G.
Page number 35.
Please hold on.
Your lordship, if you refer the first line, it is
G. Yes, G.
Yes, G, and at the same time I also. G is the one carried by accused 1 and I is the one carried by accused 2.
The numbers are different.
No, your lordship, the numbers are the same.
Yes, numbers are same.
Numbers are the same, your lordship. It's like
But
G
how do you-
compared
how
to
do you
I.
explain-
That is,
How do you explain possession? 489C says possession of phone.
Yes, the numbers are same.
So you were in possession and you were carrying it from Malda to Delhi and onwards to Pulwama in Kashmir.
they were in possession of notes, but it's not proved whether they are high quality FICA notes because CFSL report does not contain an explanation on that as to on what basis they have come to the conclusion, and thus it cannot be concluded that the notes are of high quality FICA. If your lordship is pleased, may the council move to the third issue.
But what is the
Yes.
explanation of carrying, even if it is genuine money, why were you carrying such huge amount?
Accused 3 is running an organization in West Bengal, and they were working for the upliftment of the minority communities, and therefore they are raising fund for working as part of its working. So this money could be something that they were raised from many people, and they were carrying it for some other purpose. If your lordship is pleased, may the council move to the third issue. Much obliged, your
Yeah.
lordship. The third issue is whether the person is guilty under section 121 and 123 of the IPC. Now, the essential ingredient of section 121 is that the person must either wage war or attempt or abet waging of war, and the waging of war must be against the government. Now, and the essential ingredients of section 123 is that the person must there must be an act which is an act or an illegal omission by which they conceal the existence of a design to wage war against the government, and by way of concealment they must facilitate waging war against the government. Now, in the case State versus Mehrunisa, the court has held that the expression waging war should not be stretched too far to include all acts disrupting public order or peace, irrespective of their magnitude, as act of waging war against the government. So a balanced and a realistic approach has to be made while constituting the expression waging war. Here, accused 1, 2, and 3 are charged based on the charge waging war based on the confession made by these persons. Now, confession, according to Section 25 of the Indian Evidence Act of 1872, is a confession made to a police officer is no confession. Apart from this, according to Article 20, Clause 3 of the Constitution, a person cannot be made to give evidence against himself. That is, the person is protected against self-incrimination. So, by looking into both these together, we can conclude that confession cannot be relied upon. Also, in the case State of Bombay versus Katikalu, the court has held the 4 constituent elements to make a person to make a person statement to be under Article 20, Clause 3. That is, he must be an accused person and he must have been compelled, and his compulsion must be to be a witness, and that must be against himself. So in this case, the confession is being used against these accused persons itself, and thus, according to Article 20, Clause 3 of the Constitution, the confession cannot be taken into consideration. And also, it is alleged that the accused persons have a plan to conduct a bomb blast in the Indian Army convoy, but there is no other valid evidence apart from this confession which cannot be taken into consideration. Thus, the counsel for the defense concludes by saying that the persons are not guilty under section 16, 17, 18, and 20 of the UAPA Act, and also under section 489B, 489C, 121, and 123 of the Indian Penal Code. If your lordship is pleased, may the second counsel deal with the next issues.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank
Much
you.
obliged, your lordship.
May the counsel for defense seek permission to begin with the arguments of issue number 4.
Yes.
Yes.
Much obliged, your lordship. Issue number 4. Whether the accused person is guilty under section 120B of IPC. It is humbly contended that Samir, Monu and Kalimama is not guilty of committing the offence of criminal conspiracy under section 120B of Indian Penal Code. And it is to be noted that the essential elements of section 120B are as follows. That is, there must be 2 or more persons and they must have agreed to do an illegal act or an act that is not illegal by illegal means, and such an agreement is designated as a criminal conspiracy. Some acts besides the agreement has to be done by 1 or more parties in pursuance of such an agreement. The basic ingredients of the offence criminal conspiracy, that is an agreement between 2 or more persons, and the agreement must relate to doing or causing to be done either an illegal act or an act which is not illegal in itself but is done by an illegal means. It is therefore plain that the meeting of minds of 2 or more persons for doing or causing to be done an illegal act or an act by illegal means is sine qua non of criminal conspiracy. It is also mentioned in a case Yogesh versus State of Maharashtra, and that a conspiracy is always hatched in secrecy, and it is impossible to adduce direct evidence of the common intention of the conspirators. Therefore, the meeting of minds of the conspirators can be inferred from the circumstance proved by the prosecution if such inference is possible. For every offence under section 120B, the prosecution need not necessarily prove that the perpetrators expressly agreed to do or caused to be done the illegal act. The agreement may be proved by necessary implication. The gist of the offence of conspiracy has been brought successfully in the following words. The gist of the offence of conspiracy then lies not in doing the act or effecting the purpose of which the conspiracy is formed, nor in attempting to do them, nor in insisting the others to do them, but in forming the scheme or an agreement between the parties. And the agreement is essential, and the mere knowledge, even the discussion of the plan, is not per se enough. And it is also stated in a case, Khega Singh versus State. And conspiracy are proved by circumstantial evidences, as conspiracy is seldom an open affair. Usually, both the existence of the conspiracy and its objects have to be inferred from the circumstances and the conduct of the accused. The well-known rule governing the circumstantial evidence is that each and every incriminating circumstance must be established by reliable evidence, and the circumstance so proved must form a chain of events from which the only resistible conclusion about the guilt of the accused and can be safely drawn, and no other hypothesis against the guilt is possible. To prove a conspiracy, the prosecution must establish that there was a meeting of minds between 2 or more persons to do an unlawful act, and it is very difficult to get direct evidence to prove criminal conspiracy, and it can be proved only by circumstantial evidences. However, it is not sufficient to convict a person under this section merely to prove that he had been associating with the other accused persons at certain place on his arrest and from being accused of something connected with the conspiracy, and the prosecution cannot complete what is necessary to show that he was a person who concerted with the others by proving that he was friendly with the other accused and was anxious to escape the observation and was doing to his best to conceal his whereabouts. And the confession made by the accused number 1 and 2 is unreliable, as it is of low evidentiary value and lack of corroboration. The Apex Code has held that confession of a co-accused cannot be used against the accused unless this court is morally satisfied on other evidences that the accused is guilty. And it is also stated in a case Badal Sheikh versus State. And a conviction made based on a confession by a co-accused in the absence of corroboration from other independent evidence would be considered very unsafe to do. And when even a link breaks away, the chain of circumstance gets snapped, and other circumstance cannot in any manner establish the guilt of the accused beyond all reasonable doubts. When attempting to convict on circumstantial evidence alone, the court must firmly satisfied with all all the following three things. That is, the circumstance from which the inference of the guilt is to be drawn and must have fully been established by an unimpeachable evidence beyond a shadow of doubt, and the circumstances are of determinate tendency and yearlingly point towards the guilt of the accused. And thirdly, the circumstances taken collectively are incapable of explanation on any reasonable hypothesis except that of the guilt sought to be proved against him. Thus, the circumstantial evidence must be fully consistent with the hypothesis of the guilt of the accused, otherwise the accused cannot be convicted. The prosecution must inevitably and exclusively point to the guilt of the accused. There should not be any missing links. Any missing links may be fatal to the prosecution case, and it is also stated in a case Lakshman Naik versus State of Orissa. And to convict a person based on circumstantial evidence, the evidence must be incompatible with any other hypothesis other than the guilt of the accused. If the Lordship is satisfied with the arguments in issue number 4, then the council seek permission to move on to the next issue.
Proceed.
Much obliged, Your Lordship. Issue number 5. Whether the accused person is guilty under section 201. It is humbly contended that Kallumama is not guilty of the offence of causing disappearance of the evidence of offence under section 201 of the Indian Penal Code. And it is to be noted that the essential elements of section 201 are as follows. The person must know or have a reason to believe the commission of an offence, and the person must cause the disappearance of any evidence that of the offence or provide any information which he knows or he believes it to be true, and this must be done to screen the offender from the legal punishment. And it is plain that the intent to screen the offender committing an offence must be the primary and the sole aim of the accused, and it hardly needs any emphasis that to bring home an offence under section 201 of IPC, a mere suspicion is not sufficient. There must be on record cogent evidence to prove that the accused knew or had a sufficient information to lead him to believe that the offence had been committed, and the accused has caused the evidence to disappear to screen the offender, and known or unknown, and is known or unknown. And it is also stated in a case Sukram versus State of Maharashtra. So, to establish the charge under section 201, the prosecution must first prove that an offence had been committed, not merely a suspicion that it might have been committed, and the accused knowing or having the reason to believe that such an offence had been committed with the intent to screen the offender from the legal punishment, and had caused the evidence thereof to disappear. The proof of the commission of an offence is essential to requisite for bringing home the offence under section 201 of IPC. When a specific finding is recorded by the trial court that there is no evidence for convicting the accused under section 201 of IPC, it ought not have convicted her for the same, more on assumptions and presumptions. This is also stated in a case Raghav Pranath versus State of UP. And the accused was not held guilty for the act of removing the body from hanging and hanging it on a tree, because even this act was not sufficient to cause the evidence of the murder to disappear. Whereas a noteworthy point in this case, as a prosecution was able to prove the intention of the accused that to screen the offender from the legal punishment, but this only element was proved based on the facts of the case. Further, to the essential ingredient of the intention, the prosecution should be able to prove that about the knowledge or on behalf of the accused that the offence had already been occurred. Having regard to the language used, a mere suspicion would not be sufficient. There must be available on record the cogent evidence that the accused has caused the evidence to disappear in order to screen another known or unknown. The foremost necessity being the accused must have the knowledge or have a reason to believe that such an offence has been committed. And the term used in this section, knowing or having a reason to believe, that conclusively negates the view that its provisions are applicable in the cases which an offence has not been committed. Similarly, in respect of the persons charged with an offence under section 201 under Indian IPC, it must be proved that such person or persons have actively participated in the matter of the disappearance of evidence and not merely suffered suffered the same to happen. And at most important ingredient is that it must be actually proved that the principal offense is committed and the evidence of which the accused charged with causing the disappearance and in the absence thereof the criminal liability under this section is not attracted. And the mere suspicion is not sufficient, and there must be on record cogent evidence to prove that the accused knew or had a sufficient information to believe that the offense had been committed and the accused has caused the evidence to disappear in order to screen the offender. And the destroying of evidence by the accused 3 is just a prosecution story with no reliable and valid evidence on the same. If the Lordship is satisfied with the arguments of issue number 5, the counsel for the defense seek permission to move on to the prayer.
Accused number 3 was found with accused number 5 3 days before his arrest. How do you explain that?
My Lordship, accused number 3 went to meet accused number 5 for the discussion of their organization, which
And
is
thereafter he went missing and the evidence was destroyed.
My Lordship, there are no evidences as to support that Kallumama have destroyed the evidences. There are no eyewitness to say that he have destroyed the evidence. It is just a mere suspicion that he have committed this thing. So it's just a prosecution story and it is not reliable.
Who's the next one? What about?
Prayer. If the Lordship is satisfied with the arguments, the council seeks permission to move on to the prayer.
Yes, please.
Much obliged, Your Lordship. Prayer. Therefore, in the light of the issues raised, arguments advanced, and authorities cited, may this honorable court be pleased to acquit Samir, Monu, Kallumama for committing the offences of using as genuine forged or counterfeit notes or bank notes, possession of the same under section 489B and 489C, waging war or attempting to wage war or abetting to waging war against the government of India under section 121, concealing with the intent to facilitate design to wage war under section 123, criminal conspiracy under section 120B, disappearance of the evidence of the offence under 201 of the Indian Penal Code 1860 and the offence of the Terrorist Act under section 16 and punishment for raising the fund for the Terrorist Act under section 17 and punishment for conspiracy under section 18 and punishment for being a member of the terrorist gang or organization under section 20 of the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act 1967 and or pass any order it may deem fit in the interest of justice, equity and good conscience, and all of which is most humbly and respectfully submitted. If your Lordship is satisfied with the arguments of issue number 4 and 5, then the council would like to conclude the arguments on behalf of the accused.
Let's conclude.
Much obliged, Your Lordship.
Any rebuttal?
Yes, Your Honor. The counsel for the defense has stated that the FICN that was confiscated from accused 1 and 2 had the same serial numbers, and counsel would like to submit that as per section 106 of the Indian Evidence Act, burden of proving fact, especially within knowledge, is upon the person himself. So, considering the fact that the accused were in possession of the currency, they are the only people who can answer why the currency has the same amount, because they were the ones in possession.
That's it?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Anyone else? Yes. Please unmute. Speaker 1, please unmute.
Yes, Your Lordship.
Yes.
If Your Lordship is pleased, may the counsel for the defense move to the rebuttals.
Yes, please.
Much obliged, Your Lordship. Here, the learned counsel for the prosecution stated that the notes were the notes were in the possession of the accused persons, and they are the ones who have to answer to the question of the same serial number. It is after now the defense counsel would like to say that it is after the possession, after the notes came into the possession of the investigating officers, that the notes got some changes, because nobody is going to carry an original note, not an FICN note having the same serial number. So this is something which is after it came into the possession of the investigating officers. Now, on page 13 of the memorial of the prosecution, it under point 2, it is stated that based on the statements, actions, and evidence, they conclude that they have conspired or conspiracy, or section 120B is established. Now here the statements that which is mentioned here is the confessions made by the accused persons, which is no evidence according to section 25 of the Indian Evidence Act, and also according to article 20 clause 3 of the constitution. Now the evidence, conspiracy, in number of cases the court has held that conspiracy can only be proved based on circumstantial evidence, as no direct evidence would be available. So in state NCT of Delhi versus Navjot Sadhu, the court has held that when it comes to circumstantial evidence, to convict a person solely on the basis of that, the circumstantial evidence has to form a continuous chain of events, pointing only to and leading only to the conclusion that a conclusion of the guilt of the accused. Here, the prosecution has failed to prove this continuous chain of events, and thus they were not capable of proving beyond reasonable doubt that the persons are guilty under section 120B. Now, on page 14.3, they have stated that call records, that is, these accused were in constant contact. These three accused are part of an organization which is working for the upliftment of the minority community, and thus they will definitely be in constant contact. And also, accused 1 and accused 2 are childhood friends. This can be revealed from the statement of the accused persons. Thus, a conspiracy cannot be established by the prosecution beyond reasonable doubt. Moving on to page 15.8, the learned counsel for the prosecution has stated that according to confession during the investigation. So during the investigation, the confession is definitely made to the police officer, which is no evidence according to section 25 of the Indian Evidence Act and article 20 clause 3 of the Constitution of India. Thus, and also there is no, these confession, there is lack of corroboration for the statements made by these accused persons, and thus the basis on which they have alleged that the persons have committed waging war again is not proved beyond reasonable doubt. Now, the counsel for the prosecution has stated that the nature of the organization is not revealed. From the statement of the accused persons, it is revealed that they were working for the minority groups because certain government policies are kind of not protecting them. So they are just representing them and raising the voice for the minorities, and there is nothing illegal being done by this organization. Now, moving on to page 17.13, they have said that they were hiding FICN notes. It is just that they were carrying some notes in a bag. They cannot carry such a big amount in their hands, so they were carrying it in a bag. And also, it is not established that these are high quality FICN notes, because the CBI CFSL CBI report cannot be relied, because they have not provided any kind of explanation on what basis they have come to the conclusion that these are high quality FICN. Thus, no concealment of design of waging war. The prosecution has again failed to prove it beyond reasonable doubt. Now, coming to the evidence being destroyed, in page 19, they have pointed out that this section 201, the arguments which is raised in behalf of section 201 is simply a prosecution story, because they have mentioned things like the only associate of accused 5 is accused 3. Nowhere it is mentioned in the facts or in the charge sheet or FIR or in any statements of the accused that the only associate is of accused 5 is accused 3. So thus, from that itself, it's clear that this is merely a prosecution story, because no valid evidence is provided for the same. Thus, section 201 is also, the prosecution has failed to again prove it beyond reasonable doubt. Now, moving on to the next one, that is, they have said that the burden of proof in proving that the money, from where the money, as I have already answered the question, that they were working as part of an organization, and for any organization to work, they require fund. So they have raised it from many sources, and also whether these notes that were in their possession is of high quality FICN is not again proved. Now, coming to the bomb blast thing, that is by which they have established conspiracy, waging war, and all that. There is no valid evidence to prove the same apart from the confession made by the persons. Now, confession, again, as I repeatedly been saying, that it is no evidence. Thus, it also lacks corroboration. Thus, UPA sections are also not attracted. So, the criminal law is based on the fact that even if 100 guilty persons escape, one innocent person should not be punished. And also, in order to punish a person, it must be proved beyond reasonable doubt that the person is guilty. Here, the prosecution has failed to show that the persons are guilty beyond reasonable doubt. And UPA is a very serious. Under UPA, there are only serious offenses, and if a person is punished under UPA, his future will be in question, because he might not have a good future after that. So before holding a person guilty under such sections, it has to be proved with all due evidence and beyond reasonable doubt that the person is guilty. Thus, the counsel for the defense would like to conclude by saying that the persons are not guilty under section 16, 17, 18, and 20 of the UAPA, and also under section 489B, 489C, and 121, 123, and 201 of the Indian Penal Code.
Ms.
Thank
Counsel, before concluding,
Yes,
one
Your
question.
Lordship. Yes, Your Lordship.
Their purpose was to bomb blast. That has not happened.
Yes,
The
Your Lordship.
person who was to carry out that blast is not arrested.
Yes,
The
Your
person to whom the money was to be transferred in Pulwama,
Is
Peter,
dead.
is dead. So when the end result has not happened, you have
Yes,
not said anything on it. When the end result is not, what they were conspiring for.
Your Lordship, first of all, the plan of bomb blast itself is not established. They have no other proof apart from this confession
No,
that such.
yeah,
So, Your
but-
Lordship, for a conspiracy, the actual act need not be committed. It's like at least if an attempt is made or an agreement or a meeting of
Not
minds
even
comes.
attempt, not even attempt. Where attempt
Yes, Your
has
Lordship.
happened.
But also an
They were
agreement
just in
with
the way.
sufficient.
They were just in the planning stage or proceeding towards the motive. They were not even attempted. They had not even committed. So
Yes,
anyway,
Your
this is my comment. So thank you all. You have done all well, very well prepared, and very well done.
Congratulations
all.
to all budding lawyers.
Yes.
Yes,
My best
absolutely.
wishes are with you all.
Indeed, very nice performance by both the teams.
Yes.
Thank you, judges, for giving your precious time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, team. You can leave now, and we will let you know the result very soon. Thank you. Judges, you can discuss the results here only if you want. And
I
team,
will send it. I will send it on your WhatsApp number.
Sure, sir. But Padmakantji,
Yes,
please.
I will just send.
I am waiting. I have to send it to.
I have to send the
Yes.
scores
I
and
am immediately sending.
So
I am
we'll-
sending by WhatsApp.
Yes.
By the
Okay, sir. Huh. WhatsApp.
So
Thank you so
10
much.
10 minutes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Thank you.